Hey guys, thought I'd make a video today on good first aid kits. Now, the first thing I need to tell you is these kits I'm making aren't to carry with you hiking. These are like something you would keep in your vehicle, something you would keep in the target shack at the gun club, something maybe you'd keep in your home. So lightness is not really a concern. Of course, we want it kind of compact because we want it handy to carry, but weight's probably not going to be much of a concern. Obviously, you want it light enough where, 7, 8, 10, 9, 10-year-old kid could get it from the vehicle or get it from the house and bring it to you. You don't want anything so heavy. I'll show you one I'm making up from the gun club. And now, while this is an Apache case from Harbor Freight, they're pretty economical. This case was like 30 bucks as of today, which is what, May 23rd of, big truck going by, May 23rd of 2023. So it's 5/23/23. And this thing was about 30 bucks. Now, mind you, this is for the gun club. So this is going to stay at the target shack. Probably going to have, not counting the cost of the case, probably going to be about $100 involved in this first aid kit, 130, somewhere around there. You say, oh my goodness, what in the world? Just some of the things that we got in here. I'll go ahead and show you. I pulled the foam out of the bottom, left it in the top to kind of help keep things in place here. Gloves. Anything that involves your safety, you want immediately on the top. Vet wrap or Coban. Hypoallergenic. It sticks to itself. Man, it's pretty much replaced the need for a Band-Aid. Got some rolls of gauze, about a dozen 4x4s that I keep in there. Just some general Band-Aids. Get high quality Band-Aids and only buy sizes you need. Don't get the big assortment stuff because it's, if it's got 200 bandages in there, you're only going to use 30. The other sizes are worthless as teeth on a boar. So buy the size you want, keep them in there, get good quality ones. I like these, they say Iron Man on them. What are they called? Curad Performance Series. They stick really good. Kind of like the Next Care waterproof bandages, really high quality. Got some cold packs in there. Got a trauma pack, quick clot trauma pack. I'll show you some of the stuff we got in here. As a matter of fact, it's probably easier just to show it to you laying out here on the table. Just keep it somewhat organized where when you get in there you can find what you need. Like I say, anything pertaining to your safety, protection from bloodborne pathogens and all, you just keep that right on top so that it's the first thing you see. Will encourage you to put those gloves on. Right here on the table in front of us, got some different stuff. Got some emergency compression bandages. Now, these are from Everlit Survival. They're vacuum packed. They don't have quick clot on them, as far as I can tell. But they are very handy for getting a bandage on there quick and giving it a good tight wrap. Everything I'm showing you here, you need to learn how to use it, because you don't want to be reading the instructions, though they're generally, they got very quick to understand instructions on the back. You don't want to be having to read the instructions when you're having to use these in a hurry. And of course, there's some more Quick Clot Trauma Pack. It's got several things in here. It tells you on the back everything that's in here. And believe it or not, there's an instruction booklet inside that tells you how to handle those things listed right there. Like I say, in the middle of an emergency, probably not time to be reading instructions. But so watch videos on this stuff when you don't need it, so that when you do need it, you'll know how they work. Gloves, some kind of emergency blanket. I prefer the Soul heavy duty ones. They're like orange, but these are good in a pinch. You know, basically just to help hold in body heat. I'll talk a little more about these later, but these are wound closures called Close-X. I'm going to put a link to them in the description. They are awesome. They're better than steri strips, and they are better than butterflies for closing a laceration. Like I say, have a couple sizes. You'll see here that I have a chest seal, which is an occlusive dressing that's self-adhesive, and then I have a vented chest seal. And these are from Rhino Rescue, and these are Everlit Survival. If you don't know why you would need a vented chest seal, obviously you need to study up, okay? Because these can be very life-saving, and if help is not immediately available, this could be extremely important for sucking chest wounds. And the whole deal is, you can put this over a sucking chest wound. Now, mind you, if you know, being a firearms instructor and always shooting, it's very important to understand how to deal with the sucking chest wound. If the wound is through and through, obviously you're going to have to cover up the back with something. You can use the occlusive seal for that, and then you would put this over the wound that is actually sucking air through it. When you lay them on their front, obviously the air is going to go to the top of the body cavity. You can put this over, and it will allow air to vent out, but will not allow air to be sucked in, which could be sucking in air. Obviously, when you start, the trachea starts deviating, you have a pneumothorax. That's something you want to avoid. These will help you avoid that with a sucking chest wound. Now, here's the catch. You got to get the wound, around the wound, clean and dry. So you're going to need help. Probably you're going to need somebody to hold an occlusive dressing, which could be, you know, a wrapper, a plastic bag, over there while you prep to stick these on. Prepping to stick these on could mean shaving hair, because these aren't going to stick. If a guy is sweaty, if a guy is hairy, they're not going to stick like they should. So you have to prep the area around it. But this could be a very life-saving deal if you can get it on well, and get it on quickly. And so study up on this stuff, guys, before you have to use it. Of course, you got a tourniquet. You want to keep some kind of, and I got one here somewhere, Sharpie. If you have to put this tourniquet on, there's a spot on there for you to mark the time. Pretty important. So when they do get to the doc, they know how long that limb has been without good circulation, and they may elect to release it and let it bleed some, since they're in an area that they can see that that person is getting IV fluids in a timely manner and can get blood if they need it. You want to carry something in your kit to clean wounds. And there's all kind of little things that, you know, people have to to clean wounds, the little packets and the little things. Guys, 70% alcohol will not freeze. That's going to be important if you're going to keep this container in your vehicle. This will not freeze. It is powerful enough to sterilize your hands, to kill the germs on your hands. We all know, you know, if you were alive during COVID, you know they recommended at least 60% alcohol for germ killing. Well, you got 70% here. These are cheap. This is like $1 bottle. It won't freeze, so you don't have to worry like you do with peroxide about it freezing and busting and wetting everything in your first aid kit. Keep you a pair of trauma shears. These are awesome shears, and they're cheap. No excuse not to have a couple of pair of them. Some kind of hemostats come in handy as pliers, as what they're designed for. Though you don't want to be trying to use them to clamp off a blood vessel, because you'll damage the end of the blood vessel. The best thing to do if you've got a blood vessel that's bleeding that bad, stuff some of this in there and use this compression bandage to get that area wrapped. Whether it's a leg, an arm, whatever, get it wrapped. Obviously, you don't want to wrap the neck or put a tourniquet on the neck to stop a bleeding of a head wound. I'm being funny. I'm sure you all know that. But just some of the things that you want to have handy. These right here, keep them close to the top. You'll use them a lot. Somebody will sprain an ankle. Somebody will get a burn. Somebody will get a knock on the head. Somebody may get overheated from heat stroke. You can put one of these, just dab it around the edges of his neck where the big arteries and veins go to the brain. You can dab that around his neck and around the back of the neck and under the armpits and in the crotch. You can get somebody cooled off quickly. Works same way for a fever. Somebody's having a fever. You're going to use these a lot. I bought a box of 25. I've got 3 kits, which are bigger than this one. 2 of them are bigger than this one, that I keep packed all the time in my vehicle. And you're going to go through these a lot. You're going to go through these a lot. You're going to go through Band-Aids a lot. You're going to go through 4x4s a lot, because that's what you're going to use to clean the wound. You're probably going to go through this a lot. And, you know, people are going to probably scream when you use alcohol to clean their wound. But you know what? Use it. Clean it. Also keep... well, we'll talk about the other stuff individually in a minute, but I wanted you to see the kind of things. Now, these splints, I'm not putting splints in the first aid kit for the gun club. Obviously, we're close enough. We're a 20-minute ride for the ambulance to get to us, and a 20-minute ride to the hospital. So, you know, we're probably not going to be splitting anything up on there. But the ones that I keep in my vehicles, you know, we camp, we do things like that. I like to keep a couple of these. If you don't know how to use a SAM splint, this isn't SAM. SAM is actually, I think, a brand name. But these are Rhino Rescue, and they're relatively cheap. They're 36 inches long. They're metal, and you bend them, and when you put a bend in them, it makes them very stiff. They work well for splints, and you can cut them with these shears. So you can cut it and make a splint for a finger, for a wrist. You can take it and wrap it on both sides of a leg, have it run under the foot and then curved around the leg for a sprained ankle. Just very handy. Watch some videos, learn how to use this stuff. It's all a part of what I call my 5B plan. You know, we've got bullets, we've got beans, we got a bang stick, we have bandages, and we have a Bible. Okay, those 5 B's are going to do as well to get us through anything we find ourselves in the middle of. That's just my 5 B's, okay? Bullets, beans, bandages, bang stick, and a Bible. And I'm going to go ahead. I'll edit this some and show you some of the other things I have and explain them a little bit. But I just wanted to do this real quick video to remind you to keep these. We try to keep one in each of our main vehicles. And I decided to go ahead and put one together for the gun club because I am working Saturdays now, so a lot of times when we're having a match, I am unable to be there, which that is unusual for me. But in the last couple of years, the way I've been working, doing a lot of weekend work, so I am not able to attend matches, so that means my first aid kit is not available. So I wanted to make something. Brent, a buddy of mine, talked to me the other day about the possibility of getting a first aid kit, and I said, you know what, just let me make one, because when you buy one, you spend $100. You'll see how expensive a first aid kit is, especially one in some kind of good hard container. You'll spend $150, $200, and probably 70% of the stuff you'll buy, you'll never use. The dates on it's going to expire. It's going to get all yellowed and funky looking, and you just throw that stuff away. So the best way to do is buy you a good hard container, fill it up with the stuff that you're, number one, that you're most likely to use a lot of, but you got to have stuff in it that you pray you don't ever use. And those more serious things are just put them toward the bottom. In other words, the deeper you go in the box, the more serious things get. And you'll have to, I want to tell you, these things have an expiration date on them that's ridiculously soon. If they're vacuum packed and they've still got the vacuum sealed, you can tell by looking at it the vacuum is still holding, they're fine. Trust me, they're fine, okay? Just because it says it's going to go out in a year or two, do not throw this stuff away. And the little packets, well, we'll talk about that later in the video. I just wanted to give you a general overview of what I'm doing today, because I'm revamping all my kits. It's been a while since I've been through them, and you know, it ain't cheap. I've spent probably I've spent over $400 to get these 3 kits in a condition where I'm comfortable that they can handle problems that we're likely to run up against in the kind of things we do. So it's not going to be cheap, but trust me, you'll get a lot better bang for your buck building your own than buying one. And you know, make you up a list of things you want. You'll see, I keep signal mirrors, I keep an emergency whistle, I keep just I keep some things probably other people don't keep because I'm a registered nurse. And if I want to be able to start an IV and give IV fluids to somebody I know and love, nursing license be damned. You know, my first obligation is going to be to take care of that loved one of mine. So I may be called upon to do some things that are out of my scope of practice that would put my nursing license at risk. But if it's the life of someone I love and care about on the line, you know, I can work at a gas station if I have to. So you make up a kit suited for you, know where everything is in it, make you up a little list, laminate it, put it right in the top of the box. That way when you use something or you go to replace stuff, bang, it's right there. And easy way to do it. I've got a laminated list. I'll show you in one of the segments that I'm editing in here. So just take a look. I'll be back at the end to talk about all the stuff you've seen. All right, gloves. Gloves are very important. Gloves are cheap, okay? Carry plenty of them, because outside of a minor scrape or cut, you're going to need help, okay? Believe it or not, if you put gloves on, some people there will say, when you ask later why they didn't help, they say, well, I didn't have gloves on. You had gloves on, I didn't have gloves on. Take that excuse. You know what else? Gloves can also make them feel a little official, okay? So make sure you have plenty of gloves, and for those guys that are just standing around, generally doing nothing, put them to work. Hand them a pair of gloves. You've seen how I roll this up. You can go back, take the outside pair of gloves and just kind of flip them over themselves, and put them in a plastic bag in pairs, because you know everybody's got two hands, and the guy that doesn't have two hands, well, he'll just have an extra, okay? Glove everybody up. Take away their excuse for not helping. And somewhere around here, I have a marker. Let me see if I can find it. I laid it out to repack it. It's important to have a marker in your first aid kit. Oh, here it is. Because if you have to use one of the tourniquets that you're going to keep, you're going to have to write the time on the tourniquet that you applied the tourniquet. I just write gloves. And XL. Now here's the thing. You say, why XL? Well, you know, I'm a shooter. We do all kind of outdoor stuff. Men have bigger hands than women, okay? But here's the deal. Somebody who normally wears a small glove can wear a large, and it will protect them, or a large or an extra large, it will protect them from a bloodborne pathogen. Guys who have extra large hands, when they go to try to put a medium or a small glove on, they're going to bust. They have no protection, okay? So large or extra large gloves, I decided on extra large. You know why? Because it's my first aid kit. Just do that, and I'll tell you what else I do. Anything that involves my safety, I'm going to put right at the top of the kit. Right when I open the kit and I fold out the little organizer, which you'll see, I'm going to have all those things pertaining to my safety and to fix small things like little cuts, little scrapes, things like that, the first thing I come to. This is a good thing to keep. It's a reflective belt. You get out at night, there's been a wreck, man, just wrap that thing around your neck, or you know, make a loop like a bandolier and just let it hang around your neck so approaching cars can see you moving. You can also get little thin green vests with reflective strips on them, like construction, you know, road construction crews wear. Throw one of them in the top. Everything that involves your safety, put right at the front. Pocket mask for doing CPR. You want that right at the front, you want it right at the top, because if you need that pocket mask, you're going to need it quick. You don't want to have to dig for it. You also want to have it, I believe mine's in a bright orange container. You want to be able to tell people, pull that bright orange thing out of that top right pocket, you know, and that way they can get it to you quickly after someone has called 911, because if you've never done full CPR on somebody, you're going to soon find it's going to wear you out. You're going to need help. So have plenty of gloves, pass out gloves. Basically, you're just consider that you're deputizing folks. When you hand them a pair of gloves, they're one of your deputies. They're doing what you tell them to do. It may just be something as simple as keep direct pressure on a small cut while you're getting everything out to fix it, or at least to temporarily fix it. So gloves are important. Another thing that's important: Coflex, Coban, vet wrap. It's all the same stuff. Try to avoid the cheaper stuff. Some of it's got latex. If people have latex allergy, it can bother them. Also, peel off a little strip of it and blow through it. You know, actually bring it to your mouth and blow through it. If you can't blow through it, it's not the real stuff, okay? You don't want it. It's gonna not let air get to whatever you're wrapping. You don't even have to use Band-Aids. Keep this stuff. Keep some small 2x2s. This is a 3x3, but cut a piece of it off, lay it over the cleaned up wound, wrap it with this. Check capillary refill to make sure, like if you're wrapping a finger, you don't want to wrap it so tight that when you mash that fingernail that it stays bleached out white. You've got it too tight. You need to redo it and loosen it a little bit so that they have capillary refill. That shows they're getting good circulation. So vet wrap is an important thing. I usually keep some 2-inch and some 4-inch. Very rarely will you need the 4, and if you need it and don't have it, you know, you can double up on the 2. So, and usually when you open one, get them individually wrapped, because once they get mashed and squished, boy, they're hard to use, and things will stick to them. And so just go ahead and consider when you use one of these that you're going to use it and throw it away. So if you do look around, you get it for about $1 a roll, you know, on the Amazon or eBay, and it's the best stuff since sliced bread. You can hold a cold pack on with this. You can you can make a compression bandage with this. On a limb, anything, you can wrap it totally around. You got enough of it, you can actually wrap it around the chest. And so this stuff is indispensable, and it makes tape, in most cases, it makes tape obsolete. And tape is a hard thing to keep. If any of you have tried keeping up some first aid kits, you know that tape is a hard thing to keep in good condition. Well, this makes tape obsolete. If you can't afford it, good thing to have is Field Surgical Kit. You've got some tweezers, you've got some scissors, you got a little pin light. You know, check your battery, make sure that the batteries stay up. You've got a scalpel, which, you know, very rarely will you ever need. You've got scalpel blades in here. You have some alcohol packs, but the most indispensable thing in these packs are these hemostats. In a pinch, they can work as a pair of pliers. They can, you can use them for clamps to temporarily hold bandages in place, and of course you can use them for what were designed for, to clamp off the end of a large blood vessel. But you can't have them where they flop around. Usually, you don't know what you're doing. You don't want to do that. You're going to damage the end of the artery. Pressure is always best. So, but these hemostats, I always keep a pair of hemostats, even in little kit that I carry in my backpack. I keep a pair on there, just because they come in so handy. And these kits are kind of expensive, but if you can afford one and weight is not an object, get one. They're pretty cool. Because they're heavy. If you're a backpacker, you're not going to want to carry one of these. I can tell you that right now. Some of the stuff that you're going to want to carry, the first thing a paramedic is going to ask about when they get on the scene, So what's their vital signs? Have you taken their vital signs? Probably not going to take your word for it. They're going to take their own. But if you're talking to somebody on the phone, at least you'll be able to give them some vital statistics. If you're going to carry an old school blood pressure cuff, remember it will not do you any good without the, Lord have mercy, I'm a nurse, stethoscope. Lord. I generally don't carry the old school. I carry one of these in each of my boxes. And you say, oh, those things, I've heard those things aren't accurate and this, that, or the other thing. Listen, folks, if they get close, that's good enough. You're not in a clinical situation. You're not going to be making clinical decisions based upon the readings you have here. You're not going to adjust blood pressure medications based upon the reading you get on this thing. What you want to see at a glance, is this guy in a hypertensive crisis, or does he not have enough blood pressure to even send a supply of oxygen to his major organs? This will get you close enough. It doesn't have to be perfect blood pressure. Also, the cuff that I have in here is worthless on a fat person, because there are cuff widths that have to do with the circumference of the arm, and you got to make sure that if you've got a heavy person, you're not going to get an accurate reading on a cuff like this if it's a regular size, just an adult regular size cuff. It's going to give you inaccurate measurements. Believe it or not, now there are some exceptions. There are some people that, if they're really obese, sometimes it looks like their hand is just plugged onto their wrist, and their wrist is this fat here because of edema or whatever kind of reason. But most people, you will be able to get close with this wrist cuff right here. And that's all you're doing. You're not providing clinical or long-term care. Also, something to get an oxygen reading. Of course, you want the flashing light. There, it's working. Let's see what mine is. Mine's probably insane right now. Heart rate 76. O2 is 95, 93, 94. Somewhere in the ballpark. Mine's probably a little higher than that, but these things don't have to be extremely accurate. They just need to let you know that everything's kind of working. Something to get a temperature on. These are cheap. Man, you can get them all day long for a few bucks. Keep one with you. Other things I like to keep. Just a small signal mirror. Okay, very easy and light to just throw one of these in. Worst trouble you'll have with that is keeping up with where you put it. Another thing, some kind of knife, and it doesn't have to be a good knife. You can find a knife like this in a bargain bin at Harbor Freight or something for a couple of bucks. It's only got to be sharp one time, You're going to use it if you need it to use it. It's going to be there. It's going to be sharp. If it's, something breaks, throw it away and buy another one. But keep some kind of knife to cut with. Another thing I like to keep is saline flushes. Now these are probably pretty old, but my gosh, y'all. Every nurse that works in a hospital that I know probably carries 3 or 4 of these home in their pocket every day, because this is what you use. You always want to have them in your pocket when you're working in the hospital, because you use these to flush IVs to make sure that the IVs are still patent. Another thing I like to have is some kind of whistle. You can holler until your throat is so traumatized that you lose your voice. This thing right here, you give a few blasts of that, you can get somebody's attention at a pretty long distance, much farther than you can be heard screaming, and it's a lot easier on you. Also like to carry some kind of little first aid book for folks that maybe don't know what's going on. Throw it in there. Remember, this is a kit for you to carry in a vehicle or something. We're not talking about carrying on you. That can be done with smaller packages, and obviously weight and size will matter. If you got a hard case that you're keeping in your vehicle, carry you some kind of book. Look at this little deal. Safari Club International Foundation used to make these things. Walmart used to give them away. You flip from this side, it's survival tips, building a shelter, first aid, how to use a compass. You flip it over and go from this way. Altitude illness, burns, choking, CPR, diarrhea, dislocations, fractures, head and neck injuries. Just a good, quick little reference to have. Throw it in there. Throw it in there. Why did I pull out all these Band-Aids? I did this for a reason. To teach you about keeping Band-Aids in your first aid kit. You see these? There's some little squares. There's these little things. These won't even wrap once around my finger. You know why I have all these Band-Aids? Because you never use them. Buy your Band-Aids in 1 or 2 sizes. Get one big enough for a knee or an elbow. Get one that will wrap a finger or wrap a toe. Buy only individual sizes, because all these you're going to end up throwing away. You're going to keep them till they're so old they're funky. You won't even be able to get them out of the wrapper. They're worthless. So get your Band-Aids in one size. Get good quality ones. Get waterproof ones. NextCare is good. If you buy the Curad Iron Man, which is what I'm currently using, they're good. They stick whether somebody's sweating. Now obviously you got to get the sweat off before you stick it on. But once you get it on there, it's on there for a while, okay? Get them in sizes you'll use, and don't even waste your money on that crap, okay? So another thing I carry that's really cool. Used to carry these old school butterflies. You see what terrible shape they're in. You know why? Because I don't use them much. But here's the deal. If you need one, you need one. They got something so much better now. I found these just recently, and they are the bomb. Now, we use steri-strips in the hospital and clinical setting many times. And steri-strips are pretty good. You can get those, but look at this. This is a new deal. These are, and I say new deal, they may not be. I just may not have been privy to them. These will allow you to close a laceration. These are called Close-X. They will allow you to close a laceration and even approximate the edges as you're pulling this tight, so that you can almost, I would say you could probably make as good of in a cut or laceration closure than a doctor could with sutures. And I hate to say I'm looking forward to using them, but I am very glad I have this option now. Maybe I'll put a link, if I can remember, I'll put a link in the description so that you can find these. And I think they're pretty cool deals. Now this comes with alcohol pads to clean. I also want to tell you that hair is a problem. So generally I carry disposable razors, because you want to get hair away from a wound. If you're going to close it and you want it to stay closed for a while, use that razor to get that hair off. But this is an emergency laceration kit. It comes with bandage, it comes with the Close-X, and it comes with gauze pads and an alcohol wipe. So if you got all that other stuff, you can get by with just carrying the closure, so that you can get them where it's just the closures in there. But it's a step. You peel off one part of it at first, and you attach it to each side of the laceration, about a 1/16 of an inch away from the edges of the cut, back from the edges of the cut. Then you peel off number 2, and you pull it tight, and you even have room when you're pulling tight. You even have a little bit of play, so you can kind of approximate the edges of the cut. And then you pull it together tight, and you lay it down and stick it to itself where you've already laid down the bandages on each side of the wound. It pulls the wound closed and sticks to itself. And man, you keep that thing dry, and where it can get a little air to it, and even some sunshine, because remember, the only thing that's going to be going over the wound itself are those thin little narrow strips. So, you know, you can help fight infection that way. Put you a clean wrap over it where it'll still allow it to breathe, but it'll keep that wound clear. And man, this can save you a trip to the ER. Walking in the door now, I don't know how it is in the part of the country where you live, but walking in the ER door now is generally $1,000. If all they got to do is give you two Tylenol and a Band-Aid, you know, you're looking at probably $1,300–1,400. If you got to get sutured up, probably $2,000. Invest in these. I haven't used them yet, but from everything I've seen, they are the real deal. And from what I know about steri-strips, this is a better way to do it. Also, I want to show you medications. I used to go through the trouble, and I've got some here, of buying my medications in little individual 2-packs. You see how yellow these are? That's because you very rarely use them or need them. Most times when you need Tylenol or ibuprofen or something like that, most of the times you're at a place where people have it in the cupboard. So these little meds are gonna expire, and they're gonna get all yellowed looking, and nobody will take them because they're like, ooh, look at that, look at that. So, and you know what? I don't blame them. Do you know you can go to Dollar General I'll just lay them out here where you can see them all. Aspirin, naproxen sodium. So, you know, you've got naproxen sodium, you got aspirin, you got Tylenol, you got Benadryl, you got ibuprofen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $5. $5. Put them in your case like this. Use them like this. When the bottle expires, you can toss them. We all know that the expiration date really doesn't mean anything if you've kept these things cool, dry, and dark. Now, the problem with these kits is you're going to probably be leaving these in your vehicle. Don't leave your vehicle in direct sunlight, or leave your first aid kit in direct sunlight. But you probably need to pay a little closer attention to the expiration date on these, because they're staying in your hot vehicle. I know in the summers here in Tennessee, it gets smoking in a vehicle. So pay a little attention. I think most of these have been expired for a few months. Yeah. And we'll swap them out. But man, there's no need to do these little bitty things right here. Now, these would be great if you're just taking a little kit that you can slip into your pocket and head off when you hike or something. But you know what? They're not worth the money you spend on them. So, that being the case, dump you out a few things in some small individual plastic bags and put them in your little kit you carry. No need to have all that mess. And if you mess with these things all the time, you know what the dosages are. You don't need to read the label. And it's, you know, it would be your personal individual little kit anyway. So, you know, use some common sense. The little packets of antibiotic ointment Really? Just get you a tube of that and put it in there. Really, it's going to be okay. I also like to keep these little triangular bandages to make slings out of. But you know what? They're 40 by 40 by 56. That's a pretty big piece of muslin. If you need to, my gosh, you could filter water through a double or triple layer of this. You could, there's a lot of things you can do. You can make you a headband, sweatband. You can use it, fold it up and use it to cushion a splint. And, there's all kind of uses for this thing. Just think of it as a really thin bandana, 40 inches by 40 inches by 56. All right, I've told you some of the things that you're going to be using a lot of. Of course, is the stuff, to handle scrapes, cuts, burns, bumps, bruises. So you want to have a few cold packs. You want to have gauze. You can buy gauze, y'all, in individually wrapped rolls. And it's a whole lot cheaper, but you may pay $2 for this thing, but you get a whole box of them for 20, So some things you'll do better just buying them in bulk. You'll use a lot of these. You'll use a lot of 4x4s because they're basically your wash rag. Not only to dress wounds, but as a wash rag or do other things. Clean your hands. Wipe sweat away, wipe moisture away before you put an adhesive bandage on to clean a wound with your alcohol. And people say, well, you may not be using much of this gauze. Listen, you can stuff this whole thing in a wound and wrap it with Coban, or what people call vet wrap. And you can make a heck of a compression bandage. I mean, this is what we did in the hospital when somebody had a heart cath. We'd stuff one of these in their groin, then we'd take this and just wrap the heck out of it so that it held this stuff down in that hole, or stuff down where we accessed that artery. Keep the things that you're going to use a lot of, keep them at the top of the box. You're going to see, I'm going to show you an organizer how I do my big boxes. And so that when the things you're going to use a lot are going to be right at the top. They're going to be the first things that fold out. The stuff that you hope you'll never have to use is in the very bottom. You got to go deep to get to that stuff. First of all, it's easy to tell folks, hey, it's in the very bottom. Because if you need that stuff, you're going to need it quick. So you want it easy to be found. All the other stuff, you can take your time and look through your little organizer and see what you got to have. We're going to go over that organizer in a minute. But keep stuff like 4x4s. Keep a few rolls of gauze. Keep your stuff that you're going to use as a wound cleaner or skin cleaner or hand sanitizer. Keep that stuff toward the top. You're going to use it a lot. You're going to use these cold packs a lot. You're going to have a kid that takes a knock in the head, at a t-ball game, and you can, pop one of these and let them hold that on there. The quicker you get cold on something like that, the more you're able to control the swelling. So, think about this stuff when you're laying it all in the box, so you realize the stuff you're going to use every day and that you're probably going to be having to replace more frequently. That's like these. You think, well, wow, you're not going to use a 4-inch roll of gauze to put a bandage on some. No, but I can wet this whole thing with alcohol and scrub the skin around a wound. Or clean off a scrape place. Now, is it going to burn? Yeah, it's going to burn. So you better have you better be ready to, which is not a good idea because you're blowing germs out of your mouth that are probably a lot worse than the germs on your skin. So just remember that too. But you're gonna go through a lot of these, and it's not for what you think it will be for. You're just going to use them because, hey, that'll work. Hand that here. And you know these are cheap. You know they're good and absorbent. You just use a whole roll at a time sometimes. So keep those things close at the top of your box. Let's take a look at our organizer, and I'll show you how all that works. All right, told you about my organizer. This is one of my big Pelican cases for the kits that I keep in my main vehicles. It's a pretty big case. All the foam's removed because honestly, I want all the room I can get in here. What am I using for an organizer? These are things people get to hang on their closet door. You know, it comes with hangers, and it just like hangs on the back of your bathroom closet. You know, you keep combs and brushes and things. I'm using this mesh this time. I had vinyl that you could see through the vinyl a little better, but it doesn't hold up well. You open and close it a few times, it gets brittle. So I'm going to try this. Maybe this is better. And you can see when I put this in the case. Now, I don't know if it affects the way I do things, but I know it does on some things. I'm a left-hander, so this pretty much matches the dimension of that case. And of course, you can have things that lay under this or things that stuff down beside it too. But when this thing folds in here, it's going to look something like this. And the stuff that I use a lot is going to be on this top layer. Of course, when the pockets get stuffed, it's going to stand up taller. That way, whatever I need the most is right here. I'm going to put gloves right here. I got a little reflector belt to wear, or a vest with reflection tape on it. You know, if you got to work a traffic scene at night, you want something where people can see you. All the things that have to do with my safety, like gloves, pocket mask, reflector tape vests, or, you know, day glow vests. Then Band-Aids, 4x4s. Probably going to go right here. And keep some rolls of stuff, my serious stuff. The stuff you're going to need if things get really bad. Compression bandage and chest seals. I have them in this bottom pocket. That way I can tell somebody it's in the last pocket. Pull the last, because I'm sure I'm going to be busy doing other things. Now, you can put safety pins through here that will add tension to keep these things from sliding out of the pockets. But let's be real. You're probably never going to be pulling the bag out this far. These are always probably going to stay laying on that bottom layer. At least you hope they will. But you can use a safety pin. Like I have this safety pin, so if you know they turn upside down, the stuff don't dump out. Of course, don't poke a hole in anything that's vacuum sealed, because you'll ruin the sterility of it. But a safety pin, even if you're in a hurry, you just grab it and pull. And, you know, you pull the pin out of the thing, but I mean, how cheap is that, you know? So I just pin it to try to keep them all kind of organized and keep stuff from sliding out in the carrying and the opening and the closing of this box. Another thing I like to keep is a couple of these in each box. These are burn dressings. This brand is called Burn Fix. Somebody gets a bad burn, these will really help cool the burn. If you lay them across the burn, they're actually wet. They have a water gel in here, and they also have some type of pain, like a local anesthetic. I can't remember what the name of it is. and I don't have my glasses, but you can look them up. There are a couple companies that make them. The company that makes these also makes them, and they're really good for caring for a burn, especially a large burn like a 2nd degree. I will tell you, they work on chemical burns, they work on sunburn, they work on 1st and 2nd degree burns. But one thing you need to keep in mind, if you have a chemical burn from a chemical, you need to get it off before you put this on, and you need to flush the burn. And if it is, obviously, if it's some kind of dry chemical or powder, you want to brush it off as best you can before you put anything liquid on it. And then when you get it brushed off as good as you can get it brushed off, then you need to flush it with water before you put one of these on, because you could exacerbate the burn by not removing the chemical. So just follow the instructions. The instructions are on the back of these things, and which reminds me, it's probably a pretty good idea if you're like me and getting up there in age, throw you a cheap pair of reading glasses in every kit. Some of the labels on things you have in your bag are going to be hard to read, and you just need to keep them handy so you can pull them out, slip them on, and read the fine print. Okay. Also, another thing I like to keep right near the top of the box are some of these chewable aspirin. We all remember when we were a kid, back when aspirin was about the only thing you had to take care of a fever. They had children's chewable aspirin, and that's what these are. If somebody's complaining of chest pain, or you suspect they might be having a stroke, go ahead and have them, if they're able to, go ahead and have them chew up 4 of these. These are 81 milligrams, so that's what? That's 325 milligrams of aspirin. You know, one of the things you learn being a nurse, one of the first things you learn is about chest pain and heart attacks. And they always teach us MONA, M-O-N-A, morphine, which you're not going to have. Oxygen, you're probably not going to have oxygen available. Nitroglycerin, you're probably not going to have nitro available. But the A is aspirin. It's important enough to be included in that list of things that we use at the hospital. So at least you can have that. Have them chew 4 of these 81 milligram chewable tablets. Aspirin is it's still a wonder drug. So your kit should not be without aspirin. I realize there, with Rise syndrome and things, there's some risks to giving it to somebody that's under 12. But listen, if it hadn't been for the stuff when I was a kid, I would have I had febrile seizures and high fevers when I was a little kid, and I am quite sure that without aspirin, my life would have probably been much different. So despite the risk, aspirin is just something you can't do without. Another thing that I keep on hand, some sutures. I keep silk. Needle size doesn't matter really, because my intent is not to sew up a person, but if you've ever been out somewhere and ripped your pants, I have, and to keep them from tearing completely off of me, I was able to put some stitches in them with that. I also had a knife case that came unsewed, and with the little awl attachment on a multi-tool, I was able to stitch that knife case back up, and I've never fixed it. It's still got the silk suture material in it, and it's holding up fine. So I also try to pack a very sharp cutting tool. A knife, pocket knife is one thing, But just a scalpel blade, just drop it in with your tools or in the pouch where you keep your sutures or whatever, just as long as you remember where it is. Now, I talked about these little flushes elsewhere in the video. Not going to spend much time on them, but I never explained what we do with them. Of course, all the nurses keep these in their pockets in the hospital because flushing IV lines, make sure that the IV is still patent. These are good if you get something in your eye and you need eye wash. This is sterile saline. And you know, I know after you keep them a while, people say, well, they may not be sterile anymore. Well, guess what? It's clean saline. So you go swimming in ponds, rivers, lakes, think that water's sterile? Think it gets in your eyes? Okay, this is more or less to have a little directed stream, kind of like an eyedropper, if you will, of clean water. So that's our intention for keeping these. I didn't want to insinuate that we're doing IVs or anything out there, because obviously that would take a doctor's order and take the proper IV solution for the situation. So I just wanted to explain why these are a good thing to keep. Hey, I thought we'd do something just for kicks before I end this video. Down in front of me here, I have this is truly a relic. Back when when I first met James Yeager, he was still chief of police of Big Sandy, Tennessee, and was just starting out his business. And the way we found each other is he was starting tactical response and I was starting armed response. So we kind of Googled each other's names and we, to make sure we wasn't stepping on anybody's toes, and that got us in contact. I went over there and I hung out in the early years quite a lot with James. I shot that the Southern Lawman match with Higginbotham and oh my goodness. Rangemaster Tom Gibbons, Lord have mercy. And in those early years, and when James, of course, I took classes there, several classes with Andy Stanford and with James, and helped to teach some of them in the early days when his fighting pistol was called a tactical pistol. And James started kind of doing more business. He came out with these things called the VOK, which is a ventilated operator kit. Now, these things this thing is ancient now. I don't even know when it would expire because all the stuff is off the label, but I thought we'd open it up just for kicks and see what's in it. It was at one time vacuum sealed, and of course it's lost its vacuum seal. Here's an airway. That's a pretty good thing, and some K&Y jelly. Seeing if it has an expiration date on it, so we might get an idea of how old this thing is. Don't see an expiration date on there. Wait a minute. November of 2009. I really thought it was older than that, but oh, there's a big old whopper. That looks like a what? 18 gauge? Oh, it's a 14 gauge needle. That's for to relieve a tension pneumothorax. Big old nasty looking needle. it will definitely get the job done. Here's a compression bandage. This is an H bandage, just the old school way of doing it. Now they actually have a round clip that you slide it through and pull it tight. But this is still a pretty good system if you know how to use them. A quick tourniquet with directions on how to use it right there. Pretty good. And oh, look at this. This is a duct tape just rolled on itself. Y'all, I do this in all my backpacks and my little first aid kits. Just roll some Gorilla Tape on itself. Now, Gorilla Tape's really, it sticks to itself really hard. But boy, it's a good thing to have when you get out there. H&H compressed gauze, crinkle cotton fluff bandage rolls, and the vacuum pack is still good on there. So that I am certain is still probably fine to use. Well, there you go. Just to bring back some pleasant memories of my time with James. I'm gonna say at that point when I bought that, I'd probably known him about 10 years, because I believe it was when I started Armed Response. It was in 1998, and that's about when we first met. So it might have been a little later. It might have been around 99 or 2000, not sure, but just some good memories of James. I remember I used to send him guys, students of mine that would that I became really close with and trained with, and that I knew had the stuff. I would say, okay, now it's time to go train with somebody else, and I'd send people down there like my good friend Luke, my good friend Derek, my good friend Matt. They all went down there at different times, and the last time Derek went down there, I got a phone call, and it was from Derek, and he said, I got somebody that wants to talk to you. And I answered the phone, and it was James, and he said, man, what kind of monsters are you creating up there in West Tennessee? Because everybody that went down there from here they had their stuff together. And James was pretty impressed. And to be such a little rural area, he was pretty impressed with the caliber of folks I was sending down there. And they're all good dudes, man. They're all top class. All of them. I still love them all dearly. And I know James had a reputation at times of being an a-hole. But I'm going to tell you, James was a good dude. And every time I was around him, every time I was around his family, it was a hot rod. Actually, it's a pickup truck. It's one of the negatives about living in West Tennessee. Every 19-year-old kid has a square body with loud pipes. So, but every time I was around James, every time I was around his wife, they all just treated me real great, and it was a pleasure to know him and a pleasure to train with him and to see our businesses grow together. Of course, James's business got way bigger than mine did, and he gained a pretty good bit of notoriety, and every bit of it's deserved, because he was a character. And the world is a poorer place without him. He might have been a little rash at times, and I'll never forget, we shooting in the gravel pit, and back in those days, and we were doing an advanced tactical pistol class. And first of all, a lot of the dudes that showed up for that 2-day class went out after the first day and got a little crazy in the local clubs, and And so the next day when they all come rolling out, he had us standing there with the breathalyzer tested, and we had a couple that actually had to sit and drink water for the first half of the class that day because they were still registered too high on the breathometer. So, but people coming in would drive over the scales, and they had told James, you know, those people can't be driving over the scales. We have those scales, you know, they're a precision instrument, and we don't need people running over those scales. And that day, that first day before we left for lunch, and there were a couple of older people in there, and there were a couple of women in the class. And, buddy, he started dropping F-bombs, saying, if you run over that beeping scale and a beeping, I'm going to put my foot up your bleep, you know. I was like, oh my gosh. But they kind of got the idea. Everybody avoided those scales for the next 2 days. And that's some of my memories of James. So I appreciate y'all watching. Y'all take care. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your family. And God bless.